2 months ago, I tested positive for COVID-19. I was shocked because I had a breakthrough case, which means that I was fully vaccinated, in my case with Pfizer, and I had been taking all the precautions I could since the beginning of the pandemic. I am just here to share my story, and you will get the takeaways that you need to take away. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I took it seriously, and my family and I have been social distancing. My youngest kid did school from home. My husband worked from home. I already worked from home, so pretty much my day-to-day did not change much. I masked everywhere I went, in some cases double masked, and I have these very pretty masks that have embellishments, but it was always like a 3-ply mask with a filter. And, I washed my hands more than I've washed my hands in my entire life. Used hand sanitizer, what have you. Suspended all travel. And, for the whole year and some, my family unit escaped COVID. None of us got it. In fact, I had not even a cold for almost 2 years. So I went from thinking, well, maybe I'll wait to get the vaccine, to I want to get it yesterday, because I wanted to go visit my dad in Spain. He underwent cancer surgery, and we had practically said our goodbyes because we didn't know whether he was going to wake up from surgery because of his heart condition. And anyway, it was just for all of us, it was a very grueling year. And for all of us, I mean for you too, I imagine. So when the time came to get the vaccine, I was there and I got it. Our family got the vaccine, the first dose, the second dose. We all got Pfizer. We waited the 2 weeks after the second dose to feel that we were fully immunized. And although now I understand that having the vaccine means, especially if you have the Pfizer one, which is the one I know most about, because it's the one I got, it is 96% effective in preventing COVID-19 with very terrible symptoms. It also prevents hospitalization and death. So that is what it's really good at. But somehow, I think that a lot of us felt that it meant that we were 95% immune to actually getting COVID. However, I still masked after getting the vaccine, and even when the CDC said that vaccinated people did not require to wear masks indoors, I still wore mine. I'm not saying that you should, I'm just saying that that's what I did, and in fact, that's what I continue to do. In May, I traveled to Spain, and I was very privileged because I have a Spanish passport and American passport. They were not allowing non-Spaniards to enter Spain except for special circumstances, so I basically traveled in a plane with maybe 10 other people. So I felt weird because it was my first trip, and it was an international trip since the pandemic started. But I felt okay. I was wearing my mask. There were very few people on the airplane. When I arrived in Spain, there was a mask mandate, like everywhere, indoors, outdoors, no matter what you were doing. So I just wore my mask all the time. And the vaccine rollout in Spain was much slower, still is much slower. So by the time I got there, in my family, the only person who was vaccinated aside from myself was my father, who is 82 at the time of this filming. And well, with his cancer and all this, I was, afraid of, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to catch it. I don't want to give it to him. In the time that I was there, I spent time with people who were not vaccinated, who were some of my family members. And yet, again, in public, took precautions, just the normal everyday thing. Flew back here to the States. I was fine. Nothing happened. Then I took a domestic trip inside the United States from Florida, where I live, to Colorado. And this was also to see another family member, my eldest daughter, who was living in Colorado at the time. So my youngest, 17 at the time and now, and I went to visit my eldest, who is 20 years old and again living in Colorado. So we traveled to Colorado. Most of the activities were outdoors, so we did a lot of hiking and sightseeing, and we even went to a water park. Being outdoors, I was not always wearing my mask. I felt that, I was far enough from other people, and somehow it was outdoors. And I maybe once entered a business without a mask, because basically nobody in Colorado was wearing a mask, at least not in Colorado Springs. I forget whether in Denver people were wearing masks. And still I had my qualms. I was like, I don't know. I feel I'm vaccinated. But anyhow, so my youngest and I spent 10 wonderful days in Colorado. We go to Denver airport to return to Sarasota, Florida, where we live. And we removed our masks for as long as it takes to eat a slice of pizza. People have then told me I would never remove my mask. I would, I don't know. I was maybe feeling confident. It was impossible to social distance at Denver airport completely. I mean, we were very hungry. So again, 5-10 minutes. I don't know how long it took to eat that slice of pizza. That said, surrounded by people. And that was that. Then we get on our airplane, 3.5 hour flight. I don't remove my mask except for sips of water. I did not eat on the plane. And fine. So we get to Sarasota, and I just, other than there's a couple hours of difference, and my body seems to feel, I don't want to call it jet lag, but that time difference. So I felt a little, when I arrived, tired. But, I, went around and doing my normal life, getting an oil change. I got a massage. I had to visit a couple of doctors because I had a couple things for another video happen to me with my eyesight. And then my husband and I went to dinner, removed my mask for eating at a restaurant. And again, remember the CDC is telling us you can remove your mask in a restaurant. You should be fine if you're vaccinated. So if I arrive in Florida on a Wednesday, which I think was the case, and then my husband, by the way, this all ties into the story, travels to Mexico for his own thing that he had to do. And in Mexico, everybody was wearing a mask, or most people were wearing masks. And he was telling me that, he was feeling pretty good about it. In the meantime, that was the Saturday after, we had gone out to dinner to celebrate, that I was coming back, that he was leaving, life is good. And then on Sunday, I spent the day cleaning out this room and, throwing away things, donating clothes and just making room for new things and feeling pretty good about what I was doing. By the end of the day, I felt like I had hiked what I did hike in Colorado Springs, the Manitou Incline, which is a little bit of a crazy hike and that I had never done before. And that Sunday evening, I was like, wow, I feel just as exhausted as after climbing that incline. But I only cleaned out my room. What's up? The next morning, Monday, I feel run down and I have a little bit of a cough. And since I had appointments and things that I was doing, still wearing my mask, and interestingly, at one of the doctors that I had to visit, nobody was wearing masks, not the nurses, not the doctors, not people at the waiting room. But I have this mentality that, I can only control what I can control, and that is myself. So I wore my mask, and that was that. Tuesday morning, I am more than run down. I have a dry cough. I'm feeling again like bone tired, kind of like pain everywhere. Not pain, but just this, discomfort, feeling unwell, sniffles. And I'm like, boy, this is a bad cold. And it's my first cold since the pandemic started. Just in case, I thought, let me get tested for COVID, just in case. But quite honestly, I was smelling my perfumes and smelling my essential oils to see whether I had lost my sense of smell. I hadn't lost my sense of smell. I could taste things, that was okay. And so I went and got tested. So the next 2 days, just in case, while I'm waiting for the results, I hang out here in my room, and pretty much since I work for myself, I, kind of took it easy, and thankfully kind of distanced myself from my youngest, who was in the house with me, and again, my husband is in Mexico. I did a little bit of yoga, but not too much, and all this at home, okay? I'm not leaving the house at that point. Thursday morning, I wake up to a text saying the results of your COVID test have been sent to the Department of Health. I have had many COVID tests in the past year, all negative. I have never received that text. So I'm like, oh boy. I sit at my computer, and when I opened the message and I see that positive for COVID-19 result, I was shocked. I was scared, I couldn't believe it. Now, when I shared that online, a lot of people were like, well, why couldn't you believe it? Didn't you know that you could still get COVID and all that? And I'm like, well, nevertheless, one way or another, it's still shocking that after a year and a half of, taking precautions, doing all the things, and being vaccinated, I tested positive and had symptoms. Well, the thing is that I did not believe it, and it reminded me of when I got pregnant the first time, because I really, really wanted to get pregnant, and I had infertility issues. I didn't believe it, and I got like 3 pregnancy tests. They were all positive. Well, I did the same thing. I actually got in my car. In Florida, you don't have to get out of your car. You're not, in touch with anybody when you're getting your COVID test. So I got 2 more tests because I couldn't believe it. Eventually, they all came back positive. I got the kids tested. The youngest, who had been with me in Colorado, tested positive with 0 symptoms. But this means that there was the possibility of being a carrier. And so that was isolation right there. My husband, I had been with my husband for 3 days, closely. We're married. We share the bed and a life. And boy, was he shaken up, because if he tested positive in Mexico, he couldn't come back to the States. So he would have to isolate somewhere. So these are things that I wasn't really thinking until, it's not only getting COVID, but whoa, what if he got it, then he can't come back, he has to stay 15 days somewhere, where does he stay, whether he has symptoms or doesn't, and all these other things that we have to think about. So he had to go, and it was a big ordeal to get tested. Thankfully, he tested negative. So he was able to come back a few days later. But of course, he came to a house with 2 people who had tested positive for COVID, who were isolating from each other because we didn't want to be, reinfecting each other, because we don't really know. I mean, I realized later that there are so many more unknowns, right? While I'm isolating at home, the Department of Health, the contact tracing, they call me and, of course, let me know that my what I already knew, that I had tested positive. And while they're asking me about my symptoms and this and that, remember that I didn't lose my sense of smell or my sense of taste or any of that. So that's not really an indication. It could be the Delta variant. It could very well not be the Delta variant. Who knows? Apparently they're choosing certain people who meet certain criteria for further investigation into your, further testing to see whether you have the Delta variant or not. I have no idea. I am just imagining it was the Delta variant, and I'm imagining it was at Denver Airport because my youngest and I were there. That was the common denominator. That's all I can say. Could it have happened somewhere else? It could be on the plane. Could it be when I got my oil changed? But then why does my youngest have it and why does my husband not? I don't know. I did ask a few questions myself to the contact tracer. One of them was, so now that I've tested positive, does this mean I'm more immune to it? And she said, no, it does not mean such a thing. You are going to have to be just as careful. And that was that. So I had to stay home for 10 days, and I think it was from the beginning of the symptoms. And then my youngest had to stay home for 10 days from the positive test because there were no symptoms. So it depends on your particular case. They're going to tell you to do one thing or another. Now, I am a responsible person, and even though I was even embarrassed to have to call doctors' offices and places I had been at, people I had shared time with, even in Colorado, to say, hey, remember when we were together, I tested positive for COVID. So one thing that surprised me is that I had to call 2 different doctors' offices, and when I said, hey, I was there, I have tested positive for COVID, I just want to let you know. And so the nurses in both cases said, don't worry, we're all vaccinated. And then I said, yeah, so am I. And in both cases, the person on the other side of the line was like, really? So that made me think, it's not only lay people who are thinking, oh, I'm protected or whatever. If a doctor's office was surprised that I had COVID, vaccinated, and with symptoms, then I was like, That said, I personally am glad I was vaccinated because the symptoms, as hard as they were to deal with, I developed not only the cold-like symptoms and the extreme exhaustion, which was the hardest thing I've had to contend with, which has lasted up until, I want to say like 2 days ago. And I'm taking some supplements now to increase my stamina. But I was out of breath and just not feeling like as tired as when you have pneumonia or bronchitis, the bone-crushing fatigue of when I had menopause, when I was going through it. And I don't know, it's just hard. And I'm a person who is active. I practice yoga daily. I eat reasonably well. I sleep at least 8 hours every night. I drink a lot of water. I don't smoke. I very rarely now drink beer, which would be the alcohol that I consume. I take care of myself. And I was thinking, wow, if I, who take care of myself, am feeling this tired and out of it, the brain fog, that was another one. Then I had a rash on my forehead, which happened on both sides. I did a teledoc appointment because nobody will see you in person if you test positive for COVID, at least in my case. And so the doctor said to me that if he didn't know that I had the rash on both sides, he would think it was shingles, which is what I thought it was because it was painful. 2 months later, I'm still scabbing and have weird things happening with my scalp. Thankfully, I have this long hair that covers it, but my scalp has peeled. Like, I'm not going to say even flake, peeled. The skin around my forehead is still not 100%. I have a tendency towards herpes simplex on my lips. I don't go into cold sores, but I feel the tingling and they kind of swell. So the doctor also prescribed antivirals for that, and then a cream for the rash. I was recommended to take zinc, vitamin C, vitamin B100. I took the antivirals for the lips, melatonin, which I take anyway. I think I said vitamin D, but I take those things anyway. So it was just a matter of continuing to take them. What other stuff happened? That yeah, I canceled things. Like I was supposed to teach a yoga advanced poses workshop the day that I found out I had COVID, and I was going to teach it thinking I had a cold. But when I realized that what I had was COVID, I was like, you know what? I never cancel things last minute, but I just need to take care of myself. Okay, so what I'm saying is, I have friends who are my age, fit, take care of themselves. I'm 58 in a week. And they got COVID before the vaccine was even a possibility. One of them ended up on a ventilator in the hospital for weeks. And a year later still gets exhausted and tired and has brain fog. Another one did not end up in the hospital, but was very, very sick for a month. So there's also a family member in Spain who was my age, and he got COVID before the vaccine was a possibility, died within a week. So yes, I am very grateful that I was vaccinated. Do I know for sure that if I had caught COVID without being vaccinated, I would not have had just the same symptoms? Of course I don't. But I've had other vaccines, like all the vaccines I've ever needed. I wish I could have had the chickenpox vaccine because I didn't, and I got chickenpox, and I had measles, and I had mumps. I'm of that generation, and because I had chickenpox when I was younger, now I'm susceptible to shingles, and I wish I weren't, and so I have to have the shingles vaccine and things like that. So I'm glad that I was vaccinated. If and when the booster shots are recommended, I will get a booster shot. The hardest thing, again, to deal with was the fact that 2 months later, because I'm saying that I was exhausted up until a couple days ago, but I don't know if that's going to come back because it comes and it goes. And I could be fine, and then suddenly I have this absolute ridiculous exhaustion again. So on a good day, I'm like, whoa, let's do this video today. I'm going to do a reel for Instagram, because I don't know how many days this stamina is going to last. I even get more tired just talking. So after I was supposedly not contagious, and I say supposedly because, of course, and I know there's science behind this, and after X number of days, you're okay, and you can go out and you could do whatever. I still canceled plans with friends. I still canceled an appointment. I had a frivolous thing for my eyebrows. I micro feathered them, and I technically could have gone to the appointment, but I was like, you know what? Why put the people on the other side of this in a situation where they might feel uncomfortable, plus my skin was not ready to be microbladed or anything done to it. And again, canceled dinner with friends. I saw them a week and some later, and I still felt weird, like going to a public place and nobody's wearing masks where I live in Florida. But I have come to the conclusion again that all I can do is what I can do. So I personally continue to wear a mask in public. When I go to the supermarket, I've gone to 2 sound bath meditations, which I really need because I need to see people. I need to get out of this isolation. But I wear my mask. It makes me feel better. I might have to travel to visit my kid in California this time. I want to go back to Spain to visit my dad. But now I have a different mentality. Now I'm like, okay, now I have to factor in, because it's happened to me, the fact that if I have COVID, if I get it again, if you know, where would I stay? What would I do? Those are the plans that I know that I would have to make, because by sharing my story online, I also was privy to a lot of information that people would maybe not usually share. Like, I have zero issue sharing this. Of course, I understand that this will make some people say, oh, well, that means the vaccine didn't work. But other people will say, you know what, the vaccine did work because you didn't end up in the hospital. So one way or another, what happened was that a lot of people, and people I know, told me their story. There is one person that I've known for years who I know professionally, and she wrote to me saying, I've had COVID not one, not two, but 3 times, because she works from home. Her husband and her are writers, and they have kids who go to school. So they got COVID 3 times. So and not only that, before the vaccine, so that they have a lot of neurological issues which are lingering. And so anyway, if you thought you didn't know somebody who had COVID because they're not sharing it online, think again. You know, there might be way more people than you know with COVID who simply just, you know, didn't share it. And so my words of wisdom are simply take care of yourself. If you are vaccinated, continue to take care of yourself. If you believe in wearing a mask, continue to wear it. And just, you know, do whatever is necessary for you to feel better. Protect your family as much as you can, and take care of your mental health. One of the things that was hardest for me was, I've shared this in other videos, I've dealt with depression and anxiety, and it did mess a little bit with my mental health, because the lack of stamina, the, you know, feeling vulnerable, the uncertainty, all these things did affect me. So if you've had breakthrough COVID, you're not alone. Please tell me in the comments how it went for you, how you're doing. That's it. Please take care. If you like this video, please share it, comment, like, subscribe to the channel. And if not, I have a bunch of other videos, and maybe one of them will be interesting to you.